broadcasting live from our studio in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox Cities Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core. We're joined by two of the creative forces behind an inspiring recording space in Oshkosh, Wisconsin called TRS Recording Studio. We're going to ask why they decided to open a recording studio and why they chose that location. We'll also talk about the Topsoil to TRS 25th anniversary party taking place on September 6th. I'd like to welcome Jason Goessl and Jeff Davis to Fox Cities Core. How are you guys doing?
All right.
You guys had a busy day today, at least Jeff, you did. You were on the news earlier today.
Yeah, I got up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and for about 6 hours of travel time and setup time, did 1 minute plug for the show. It was awesome.
And from what I understand, you weren't really aware that you were going to be making such a long appearance on that program.
Yeah, they told me I had like a minute to like plug the show, and then they asked me a question. I kind of could have had some more coffee, but no, it was really cool. It was really, really cool to be on there, and fun to actually like watch a live morning show run. It's pretty exciting how orchestrated they are, and they're like commercial cuts. They start talking 3, 2, 1, bang, they're back in action. They're moving sets around and stuff. I was pretty impressed.
Did you get a lot of calls after appearing on there from people that saw you on there and didn't expect to see you on there?
Like, what? So but yeah, so it was really cool. And Steve McCabe was like really cool about getting us in there and having us be able to take a role in the purpose of them being on the show as being the reunion that they were doing for that show. So it was very cool.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that show coming up. But first of all, you are two of the three owners at TRS Recording Studios in Oshkosh. Yeah. This was it's really a historic location for Oshkosh as far as history goes. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved with opening the studio? How did that space first get on your radar?
Sure. One, it is definitely historic. It's also its 150th birthday of the building today or this year, and it's on the historic register, which is good because it helps us a little bit with some of the things we're able to keep the way they are as we continue to build out the studio. I don't know, Jason, do you want to tell some story? Or do you want me to tell some story and then you jump in? Yeah. We've both been up since we've compared notes up since 4 this morning.
Wow.
So this is like later than a 5 o'clock shadow. Should actually share a little backstory. So we were talking at the break. So TRS Studio, the logo, it's the TRS plug. But Jason came up with that idea, and then the TRS can stand for a couple things, but one of the reasons it stands for, we used it was Surumi Records, Randy Darabosh, and Sungoose Records, which is Jason's record label. And we got the studio Randy had been recording in his own house. In fact, I kind of knew about him because he'd recorded Smoke Free Home's first CD that I fell in love with before I moved to Oshkosh. And I'm like, you were the engineer? So, that kind of had us start all talking. And then the idea of getting a studio came up. There's actually a funny story there, but I'll back up one to the Surumi part. So I just moved to Oshkosh like 3 years ago, and people are always like, how'd you find out about Oshkosh? And I found out about it through Jason. There's a story there about how that'll happen, but then it's like, well, how did I find out about Jason? And I met Jason in Seattle when he lived there too, and he his band Trim Tab did a release on our record label, Surumi Records. So I would never end up in Oshkosh if I hadn't started this small record label. And that led to rebirthing the record label and then getting involved in doing a studio. So that's sort of snippetous. I'll go to you, and then I can tell another story, some more about why you said let's do this.
Oh, the recording studio? Yeah. Well, Jeff, I had a couple recording studios in Seattle. I built 2 out there and then moved here in 2021 and didn't think I was going to have another recording studio. I just kind of set up my own home studio to do my own stuff at home and wasn't really thinking about it. And then when Jeff moved to Oshkosh, he's just like, I kind of want a recording studio. I'm like, no. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. well, let's think about this. And I just started Sungoose Records. I'm like, well, I'm recording at home. It'd be cool to have a bigger space. It'd be cool to not be at home. And yeah, let's just entertain this idea. And Jeff went and looked at a couple spaces. And then I asked my good friend, Chris Larson, and he, because he knows the buildings for sale and the stuff in Oshkosh. And he's like, hey, I know this guy, JJ Werner. And he might want to, he has these buildings on Main Street. We could go talk to him. I heard that he might be interested in selling. So we went and talked to JJ, and then it all kind of happened super fast.
Yeah. So 2 other things that are really cool to build on, that was the Randy part. So why also we were shopping for a studio was Reptile Palace is my home bar in Oshkosh, and it's fantastic. And Clint, the owner there, as I was, just got to Oshkosh, was introducing to me some people. I said, you need to meet this guy, Randy. So Randy and I were sitting there having beers. Randy was talking about, that's when I was like, you record the Smoke Free Home one? And he said, I actually have like an entire like studio's worth of gear in storage, but I don't have a studio. And I just banked it. Like, we didn't talk about it then. I banked it. And then like later when we started looking at this stuff, I'm like, Jason, I met this guy, and he's got like a whole bunch of gear for a studio. And Jason's like, where'd you meet him? I'm like, at this bar. And he's just, you could see his eyes like, oh my God, there's another one, Jeff crazy ideas. Then he starts asking me questions like, well, what's his gear? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, what's he have for converters? And then I finally started sharing some info, and Jason's like, wait, what? So now we were actually kind of shopping for a building with the idea that we also had the gear. I mean, the barrier to entry to getting a studio is pretty high. Most everybody knows. And that's what was pretty cool. When we went into this building, we looked at a couple others, and we were like, we could put a studio here. When he showed us JJ's place, and you've been there, we walked in and I'm like, this is a studio. And that's kind of what was kind of the magic, is we found a building that already had a studio, and we had a partner who already had the gear. And that's how we were able to kind of ramp up fast. And the trick was when we went to see the space, JJ didn't really know who we were or anything. He just had told Chris that he was ready to get out of the building. And so JJ's question was like, so if I sold you this building, person who I don't know you are, what would you do with this building? And we're like, well, I don't know about the whole building, but this is going to be a recording studio again. And then he's like, okay, let's talk. And so that's kind of how it all sort of kicked up, and then the momentum ran from there.
So did JJ still have a lot of equipment in there, or was it pretty emptied out when you first saw it?
It wasn't emptied out. It was it'd been turned largely into practice spaces. So a bunch of bands were recording there. So there was equipment in there. And JJ had some stuff. He had a lot of stuff in like the storage areas and everything, like lots of reel tape still and everything, which was pretty cool. But he cleared some stuff out, but he also left us some stuff. He's like, this could be helpful. And he was really kind of a mentor, not just in like getting the studio up, but also the whole building. I'd never had a commercial building before. And that was a little bit of an undertaking.
So what kind of changes did you make to that building once you started making it TRS?
The building or the studio?
Well, I guess the studio and the building. So I don't know if you remodified it, the layout at all, or
no. So I met so besides JJ, Jeff DeGuy was the other big force in building this. And going back to Steve McCabe, he invited me over for a CD release for his solo album. That's actually, I think, we first met. And I sat down on the couch, and this guy sat down on the couch, and he's like, "Hey, are you the guy who bought the studio?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, I'm Jeff DeGuy. I helped build that studio. I'm like, awesome, man. And he's like, so what'd you change? I go, nothing. We finished painting. Like, there was a lot of drywall up and the mudding was there, but it just needed to be finished painting. So really the layout that they put together, the sound of that room, we're building out now. We're going to build another ISO booth down the basement. We're kind of expanding some stuff there, but we're not taking down anything that they did.
So if anything, it sounds like you're just expanding what they already had there.
Yes. We're just building out, and on the building side, JJ had plans, and he kind of gave me like a list of these are things that need to be done. So like, fix the roof, finish some plumbing projects he had, some stuff like that. But and then we've added AC to the studio. That was probably our biggest upgrade.
Yeah, that's huge.
So I've got a question. So you're both from out of the area originally. When you got involved in that space, did you dig into some of the projects that were recorded there to see how the room sounded? Obviously, at that point, I don't know if you're familiar with like Rebel Waltz and some of the bands that came out of there.
We weren't until we met JJ and then started talking to him, and then he had CDs and cassette tapes, and then looked it up online. But not until the moment we met him, we just heard that it was a recording studio. And then over the last year while we were there, when we would post on Instagram or Facebook, and I'd run into people, like it seems like everybody in the Fox Valley recorded there at some time. So it's pretty legendary. So we're like, oh, this is awesome. We were more just like, hey, it's a space. We're just going to get in there and just see what we can do, because it wasn't. Jeff and I didn't really have a plan except for let's get a space and see what we can do, and that was it. And then just to fall into this really awesome space with amazing like Fox Valley history is crazy. So we're stoked. Like I hear stories all the time, like, oh, my band was there. Oh, dude, I was at this party. Oh man, this one time. So it's pretty fun.
Have you found any historical items behind anything or hidden in the walls or anywhere?
Did we?
I found some guitar picks.
Nothing.
Not too bad.
Yeah, nothing.
A couple things we're not going to talk about. But the other side of it was getting into that space. JJ did start. He left some stuff behind, like boxes of CDs and stuff. So I started listening to him and going through them, and then he had done the Topsoil 92 and 93 compilations. That was before he was in this particular studio. He had Garage in the Sky, which was down the street in Oshkosh, which is where Jambalaya is now. So it's kind of cool that turned into that. So we have been learning tons of history. I'm becoming like some sort of weird historian of Oshkosh. But he showed me some of the stuff that they had been doing, and talked a lot. He did start talking about lots of bands. And Gary Goessl, who was living in the apartment above for like 20 years, he decided he wanted to move on. We, asked if he wanted to stay or not, and he's like, "This is my time to jump." But he was giving me lots of history and stuff, and being like super cool about the transition and stuff too. So like it was really cool in the way that JJ did this. And when we did the final sale, we went over to Varsity and got some wings and beer. And he said, like, I said, I know I'm taking a baton. Like, we're not just we're not starting something new. We're building on something that's been there. And then his comment was, yeah, don't let it drop and fall out of the lane. And I was like, turned out he'd done track too, so we got this analogy and toasted that too and continued on. So we really do respect and are building on that, and we learned from some people. We had some people back at the studio and stuff like that, and it's been pretty cool.
Well, I love the fact that the three owners are very musically averse, like lots of different talents there to help artists. And I mean, is the long-term plan to help artists grow? I know on the website it says, it's interesting, your approach. It's come in, see if this is right for you. Mm-hmm. How does a new band typically go about how do they typically get to go to the studio and then find out if that's the right fit for them?
When my whole idea about starting a studio was only to record bands and people I would have on Sungoose records. And I have a lot of projects of my own. It was mainly for all of my projects. I have about a dozen different projects. I'm like, I just need a studio to record all this stuff and keep pumping. Through Sungoose, I do run global publishing administration as well and global digital distribution. So I'm partnered with, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all the places. So I distribute, and a lot of people use like CD Baby or TuneCore. I'm like a one-person owned TuneCore, so I do everything that they do, and I mainly got into it because I was putting out so much music, and I have this Relaxatone station channel that's just ambient guitar for meditation and sleep that does all right. So I got the interest of a platform to help me build my own platform, basically, and I brought Jeff on board with my platform as well with Surumi Records, and so a lot of stuff, I was bringing some bands out from Seattle. I had Jacqueline Tabor, this amazing jazz singer, wanted to do a blues record. And she's like, can I do a Sungoose release, and can I come stay with you for a week and we'll do a record? I'm like, heck yeah. And then she hired all people from Wisconsin, and the record is killing. It sounds so good. and a couple of, my own projects, Kate Voss and the Hot Sauce, and I have Jason and the Jazzernauts. I do a lot of playing with the guys from the Jazz Orgy. So I get like Mike Underwood and Kelvin Casper and Mike Malone as well, coming in and doing records and helping them put it out. And a thing that a lot of people are generally missing is publishing. It's really hard to publish your own music, and can be very expensive. So offering bands the option to have their music published so it can actually be put out properly and you actually get the money that's owed to you instead of it going to some big corporation, has been the goal. So I started sharing that with Jeff, and then we started sharing with artists. And generally the artists, people have been asked about recording there, and we're like, okay, I started taking on other artists that just really want to record there that are not on Sungoose or Surumi, and we just do, an hourly rate. And I've been able to hire great musicians, like Mike Underwood on drums and Greg McMonagle on bass. There's just so many good players here that I know I can count on to come in and back somebody up, and we can make an awesome record. And that's been fun. But the big push for Jeff and I is to have stuff that we can see all the way through and help the artist, get an ASCAP account so they can collect their songwriting royalties, and kind of, it's like an independent record labels working for independent artists and set up proper cataloging. We do sync licensing as well. So we have a platform for that. So it's putting the power back into independent musicians' hands, because sometimes they'll come in and be like, hey, I'm going to record a record. Like, all right, great. It's $700 a day or $1,000 a day, whatever a studio is offering. And they're like, all right, here's your record. Goodbye. Good luck. And then they go put it on DistroKid, and they're just like, it says DistroKid owns my publishing and songwriting. What happened? Like, well, and then nobody hears it except for, the people that, you give the link, say, click on my link. So trying to help artists understand that and then put their music out. The Surumi side is more of a heavier side. I'd say like avant punk rock. And then the Sungoose side, I have more of the like jazz and blues and my relaxatone stuff and kind of lo-fi funk and stuff like that. So it's like the mellower side. So there's been a couple bands like Sunrise Project, which I'm in. And I was looking at putting it out. I'm like, man, this is way too crazy for all the artists I have on Sungoose. Like, it's way crazier. And I talked to Jeff. He's like, dude, this is perfect for Surumi. Like, great, let's put it on Surumi. So much better. So that's kind of cool. And it's just nice to have bands be able to help them get their music out properly. So, and having a place to record and then put it out is pretty special. So that's kind of the goal for me.
I think that's great. And a lot of bands, they don't realize the other side of it. And you're right. They just record it, put it out on Spotify or DistroKid and think, okay, it's out there. Somebody's going to find it, or a record label's going to see it and sign us. And we're going to sell all these copies. And I think I always see excitement up here when an album gets released digitally, and then it comes down really fast when you realize like there's a lot more grind, different aspects you don't know about.
Yeah. And with some of these records too, like once it's on Spotify or iTunes, you're not going to get, the discovery happens before that. Once it's out, it's out. Then that record's done. That's it. Maybe if you get 10 million streams on Spotify, a record, they'll be like, dude, these guys got millions of streams. Let's put out their second record. But what I try to do with the record label when we distribute is make sure we have everything out 6 months before, and then I shop it around. I send it to the playlisters and I send it to other people. And I even, if there's a few bands I worked with where I'm like, you guys are awesome, and Sungoose doesn't have as much as I could give to you, because we just do distribution and publishing. We don't do tour management. We don't put a bunch of money into radio or anything like that. It's just too small right now. And I'm like, can I call some of my contacts at record labels that actually have a backing, and let's see if they'll put your record out before we put it out on my label, or before we get it out there, and just see if somebody else is interested. So
how many artists do you have on your labels right now?
I'm about a dozen right now. I guess it's actually, I think we're over 20 now for Surumi because we brought some back catalog in.
Yeah, and I think Sungoose is a couple dozen.
Yeah, so it's growing.
Yeah, I think with everything we have close to 400 songs and something like 100 releases or something.
And when did TRS officially kick off and get started?
There's no like official date. Like so this is actually good because what Jason's describing is this is really what we're doing it this way. Like our goal is for like the right artists to come through and on a label, and this is how we're going to manage the label.
It reminds me kind of Motown in a way.
I'm taking a lot from Motown and a lot from Sun Records.
Sun Records too.
Yeah.
Even the studio itself, we're doing a little sun modeling where they don't have the big dead space. We're letting the space be live like Sun does. And so that's kind of...
Is this what you kind of have to do nowadays? Because some people might say, why would you open a recording studio in today's environment with all these bedroom, recording consoles or little...
So those are good questions. Like, so two things on this. Like one on the studio. Why do you have a studio now? Like we're actually working in the front of the building. Probably by spring, we're going to have a small store, and it's going to be a home recording studio store. Like, come in here and buy microphones, buy AD converters, get the books, and then we'll have cables, picks, and all that type of stuff. But it's like, learn to record at home before you go to the studio. You'll know more about what's going on. You can also record some things at home. When you go to the studio, you get this big live room that you don't get in an apartment. You get access to a closet full of microphones instead of, start spending all your money on $500,000. You know how microphones go. Once you start, it just kind of takes off. So the studios give you that. That's something that's not going to go away. So when you're trying to get to that level of production, we're a step in that process. And again, it's like depends on what you want to do. If you want to spend $1 million, there's other places to go. You can spend $1 million at our place, but but the other thing, kind of going back to, we've been building up into this. So we entered it with this idea that we were getting this as kind of a private studio, and Randy would do his projects, and I do my Surumi Records project, and do a Sungoose project. But you mentioned like the two of us were here. Randy would be here. He got the allergy attack. He tried. He's got a 200-pound head. He's like, no one's gonna enjoy me here. Like, I would still enjoy you here, but okay. So, but he's from Oshkosh, and so he does have all that history. So when you're talking about the studio, we'd be like, well, he goes, well, yeah, and I'd be like, I just found out this story. And he's like, yeah, well, that's true, and also blah, blah, blah. So he really brought that together. And then what we realized, there was a lot of people who just wanted a chance to record in the studio, and that's when we kind of made this. You can come in and record in the studio with another label or with another engineer. We've got different kind of methods that you can get a chance to use the studio. So that's one of the other things you see on the website. But as we were getting the studio up and running, kind of modeling off of JJ with the topsoil, for Surumi Records, we were recording punk bands. We're like, come in. Basically, we said in the first year was, come in. We're gonna give you a day or two of recording. We're testing out our gear. You might see a hiccup or whatever. You get the recording in the end. We get one song for a compilation album. So we did the Oshkosh last November, and that had 10 bands on there from Oshkosh, 8 of them recorded in the studio. And then 2 more, which was Present Age and Shuby. They're independent bands that are in the town too, and it just really fit together, so they put the stuff on there too. So we were doing that. Not all those bands, we did the comp, but we didn't get to what Jason's describing, and that's what we're trying to teach everybody is like, sign up, you're a songwriter. And, when we were, same age as, us, but back in the day, I'm not doing that stuff. We're not going to make anyone from radio, but it's not just radio anymore. It's radio, it's satellite radio, it's Pandora. So like if you actually get on Pandora and someone picks a channel and you end up in there, there's money to be picked up. And then also the ability to license your things for like TV or show, like that's kind of where you can actually make some money now. You have to have songwriting stuff or you're not going to be able to get your stuff cleared and organized. So Jason's showed that. So we've been introducing that to the bands. We did it with Sunrise Project on Surumi Records, and then we just did a project with Dead Ringers, and we did them through this whole process. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work to go on the record label and get all the data that we need to set up to do all this stuff. So we have to work together. Like we need this information, and so we start working with the band early. So Dead Ringers is coming out on September 13th. In fact, tomorrow is the single release for No Way Out. And it was good for everybody to kind of really flush through all the pieces and stuff. And so we're ready to like keep doing that with the right bands for Surumi or the right bands for Sungoose. or maybe do some things through just the TRS Studio as a distribution channel with maybe not all the label type stuff. So we're kind of working through that, because the challenges we found with people don't really understand that, because it is very complicated and don't understand why it's of value. And that's what we've been trying to show folks. And then the other one is getting people access to the studio. Some of the folks we brought in last year have never been in the studio before. They're like, I just want to come in and track drums. I'm like, okay. And then we're like, you could also use this ISO booth over here and do this. That we could track everybody at once. You still be able to mix the levels. We're like, yeah. We're like, all right. So that's another reason for a studio, is the ability to track, multi-track, isolated, and manage that. So that would be another reason that you're beyond the bedroom studio. If you're not just layering all your tracks in your multiple instrument band, the studio offers you things that you can't do at home.
I love everything that you guys are saying. And I just imagine another studio that comes to mind is Chess Records in Chicago with that big shop. And I just imagine, are you guys going to sell some of the records from your album or from your label in the front store as well, along with the chords and...
Yeah. So the records will be there. We plan on having like a TV, that has like videos that are made. We want to start doing more videos in the studio. And we'll have swag for the studio, and probably swag for bands that played there to buy. Right now, next door, we also have that building, and my wife, Kate Voss, put in Can, which is a boutique and bar, and all the records made for Surumi and Sungoose are all sold there. So currently, that's the record label store.
Yeah, we might still keep the record over there, and then we'll do the music stuff there.
We're figuring out how that goes. But it's nice showcasing all the music that's made in that studio, and it is now showcased at Can. But I was kind of thinking like at Sun Records or Chess Records, the front thing is just, hey, this is about the studio, and then and here's some swag, and here's some CDs, and then also like, hey, we have 57s and 58s, and we have some XLRs and some quarter-inch and some strings and some picks, and just like little things that you kind of just need on the way to the gig. Or like there's a lot of venues in downtown Oshkosh now, so somebody might need a patch cable or some strings or something, and then we just have like just a little wall of like the must-need type stuff.
It's so great because even people that aren't involved in music can still, if they're a fan of like K Voss and Hot Sauce or whoever, they can go to buy stuff there, at least be part of it by going to this space or being near this space. I just think it's such a cool idea that this area, I think it's a huge plus to this area. You mentioned the Sunrise Project. How long have you been in that band? And you guys have done lots of live switching videos, which are pretty cool if people haven't seen them. The last one was in a junkyard.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that project.
So Sunrise Project, it was started by Jason Restorff, a tenor sax player in town. Catch him with his wife, Carly, in Natural Satellite. Amazing band. Sungoose just put out their last record. We're working on a video release of a Christmas single for those guys as well. And Jason asked me to play a gig, and he sent me these tunes. They're odd meter, weird tunes, kind of atonal, odd meter, avant jazz rock. And he's also really likes Korn, and so it's kind of like punk jazz, and it's a little too heavy to call it jazz. It's more, I feel like we work better at punk bars and metal bars because we get pretty heavy. So we did a couple gigs. I'm like, man, this is really cool. It reminds me of my band I had in Seattle called Trim Tab, which is on Surumi. So I'm like, would you want to play a couple of these Trim Tab songs and these odd meter crazy things, and brought it to the table, and they're like, yeah. And our first record had Travis Worth on bass, and we were a quartet, and that was super fun. Travis is an amazing player. And then we started getting a bunch of gigs, and Travis is just too amazing of a human and a player that like everybody wants him to play bass with them. So he missed like 4 shows that we really wanted to do. So we did a trio: guitar, tenor, sax, and drums. And the guitar and tenor sax they're the same register. They're the same. It's all the same. So they sound cool playing in unison, but we're missing the low end. So we had this gig at Frets and Friends in Green Bay last January, and we really wanted to do it. So we took it. Travis couldn't do it. Like, oh well. And the day before, I was at Hyde Music talking with Ryan, our drummer, and I saw there was a bass 6 on the wall, and I'm like, that's just a guitar down an octave. I'm like, Ryan, I'm buying that. I'm bringing it to the gig tomorrow. And there's some videos of that gig on our YouTube channel. I brought that, and then Randy had this 2x15 Sun amp, and Jeff had this awesome old school Gallien-Kruger head, and it sounded amazing. And then that night we're all like, this is the band. So we turned into a trio, and then we started writing a bunch more songs for the trio, and then we recorded this spring, and we have a new record coming out, Payment Plan, coming out on vinyl on Surumi Records. And I've been really into all these bands recording outside, like in Iceland and in Greenland and all over, like
on the beach.
On the beach. Like, man, we got to do some outside ones. And my brother-in-law's family owns the junkyard north of Sturgeon Bay. So I texted him like, hey, can we do a video at the junkyard? He's like, yeah, anytime, man. So we went up there with Randy and Jeff. I brought my video switcher, 4 cameras. We hired a drone extraordinaire, Aaron Dusterhoff, to do the drone stuff, and recorded 5 songs. We've been putting out a song a month with a single release just to kind of build up, tell people who we are. Helps us get more shows. It helps book the tour, and hopefully helps with record sales and getting, just being a new band is really hard. You have to hit people over the head and tell them you are a band over and over and over again before like, oh, yeah, I think I heard of you guys. So on YouTube, Sunrise Project Junkyard series, there's 3 videos up right now. A 4th one will be coming up in a couple weeks for our 4th single, Flex. But it's pretty cool. You get these cool drone flights over the junkyard, and then multi-camera work of us playing in front of a whole wall of smashed cars, the ones that have all been scrapped and junked. The last video we're putting up is a stoner metal doom song, and Jason isn't playing sax. He has a baseball bat, and he's just smashing headlights out and smashing cars, while Ryan and I are just playing this dirgy doom metal.
And I really like the song. The one I saw was called 7.
Oh yeah,
and it's just, to me, it's got kind of a Seattle-y grungy type. You've got to go see it. And at first I thought you were playing a guitar till I looked at the description and it said you were playing the 6-string bass.
Yeah, bass 6. So those were, I think, made originally by Fender in 1961. They were called the Tic-Toc bass. Probably the most famous recording is Wichita Lineman. Glenn Campbell's playing a bass 6 solo. But it's tuned an octave down and has kind of a clicky sound. I modified it so it's not as clicky and it has more low end, just because I want it to be a bass and a guitar.
And that's quite a difference from what you do with Kate Voss.
Totally opposite. Completely opposite.
Is one more fun than the other? Do you like playing different genres?
I love playing different genres.
You're very jazz trained, right? That was your...
Yeah. I've been playing jazz gigs since I was 16. When I lived in Seattle, I played music full time. So I was doing 350 shows a year, and I'd go from playing like a morning jazz gig to then an afternoon outlaw country Waylon Jennings type gig out north of Seattle, and then back at night playing with my rockabilly surf band. So I'd play, and I was in a really awesome Brazilian group in Seattle as well, and then freelancing playing jazz, and then freelancing with singer-songwriters, a lot of original music in Seattle. So I had opportunity to play a lot of wonderful original music. And country's kind of popular there, kind of 70s outlaw swing country. So I did a lot of that as well. And then I did have my band Trim Tab, which is a lot like Sunrise Project. Trim Tab is on all the streaming platforms as well. We have a cool record out called New Model that has that same kind of John McLaughlin Mahavishnu Orchestra meets, it gets a little more out than that too, and pretty aggressive. I'm a huge fan of Electric Wizard. I love stoner metal. So it's kind of funny. Like one day I'll be listening to my Chet Atkins records, and the next day I'll just have on, Sleep. And Kate's like, whoa, okay, well, listen to that now. And then today before I came here, I thought I want to hear the Meters. So I do love all styles of music. I especially am drawn to more complex instrumental music. There was a time in my life where I counted, I think I was 19, I had 2,000 CDs and 10 of them had vocals. But I'm a guitar player, I'm not a singer. So
on the junkyard thing, there's another interesting story, which is the recording side. So Jason kind of mentioned it briefly, but we were like, we're going to record this thing. And Randy are like, we're into it. We're going to do all this video and everything. And it's like, we're going to record audio too. We're like, do we just record an entire album in the studio? It's mastered. It sounds great. Like, you cut the video and then you put the audio to it. He's like, no, this isn't explaining the genres. And in this where you actually go and record. So we're like, okay, we're going to do that. And Randy's like, all right, and we're setting it all up. And I don't know if Jason knows this story, but like, Randy's like, so Jason wants to record it all live. And I go, I know, he told me. And he's like, I give it 50-50 at best. And I'm like, yeah, man. And I'm not even going to bet you on that, you know? So we brought everything, we dragged everything, we set everything up. And then we're doing the sound check and like hitting the first record and then the playback. And Randy, I'm like literally like 30 yards from Randy. And we both looked at each other and you could see on our face, we're just like, no way. Like, it was amazing. And, the epiphany was, there's something to just the direct sound with nothing bouncing anything back. And so what you hear when you watch those videos is actually like right there live. And that was pretty cool. So it was another studio experience, taking the studio on the road and seeing what we could do. So, we're not afraid to try something, and that was one that like turned out pretty good. And then of course Jason was like, what are you guys talking about? I totally knew it was going to work.
Yeah, you can't mimic that music. Like, if we did a Kate Voss and a Hot Sauce video, we could fake playing to a recording, because it's the same. It is what it is. It's the same thing. But Sunrise Project, we have our riffs, we have our sections, but a lot of it's
moves around
free form,
yeah.
and we just go with what we feel where it should go. So every time we perform the song, it is a little bit different.
Must have been pretty quiet that day at the junkyard.
We were very lucky. It was like 75
wind
and sunny with no wind. It was a perfect day to record.
So that's another thing, another TRS feather in your cap. You can do the live performances direct to an album release. As an option. You also do in-house mastering, according to the website. So
Jason really actually. So one of the things that's different about recording studios years ago, everything gets onto digital. So like, we are really focused on recording. Because then stems can go off and someone can mix it somewhere else. Including like Sunrise Project was mixed by our friend Damon Smith in Minneapolis. And then it went off to mastering with Doug Krebs, a different guy, to do that. And then he mastered for vinyl. So there's kind of those three different layers. So we do some mixing in-house. And that's like a different act and art and different set of tools. And then we just started offering some mastering stuff. In fact, Jason mastered the Dead Ringers album that we did. So
yeah, I mastered the Kate Voss and Hot Sauce records.
That's real.
I mastered my relaxed tone stuff. There's certain things, and mastering has a certain flavor. So whenever I am working with bands, I will say, hey, I will mix this, and I'll give them examples of what it's going to sound like. And I'll be like, but here's some mixing engineers that I love. And you can, your budget dictates a lot of times what people will do. And then mastering as well. Be like, here's what my master would sound like. But if I'm mastering in the box, and I have some nice plugins, and I think there's some of the stuff that of my own music that I only want to master. I don't want anybody else to. But then there's some cats out there like Ross Nyberg and Doug Krebs that have just the wall of analog gear, and when they master, there's certain records where I'm like, you need Doug. Oh, this Doug has to do this record. I'm not gonna, like the Sunrise Project. I'm like, nope, it's coming out on vinyl. The way this sounds, because Doug has mastered the True Loves and Polyrhythmics, two of my favorite funk bands, and they have this open air something just where the low end hits and the high end. It's just like he just has the magic touch. For more contemporary jazz with vocals, Ross Nyberg, like hands down, it's a magic touch. There's just certain people, and then there's other things where I'm like, I can get this sound, I can do this, and I'm the perfect choice for mastering of that record. But I do believe like mixing and mastering is art form, and bands and musicians should go with who they're comfortable with. So I'll never say I'm the best mastering engineer. I'll be like, hey, this is what my masters sound like. There's a lot of good mastering engineers. Find out who's best for you.
We had the comment here that's kind of sound related. It says, is compression a study of the dark arts?
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning to appreciate compression. I kind of came in with like no compression kind of story. I've seen it destroy drums numerous times. And also why not just wait and do it post, not pre? But there's a lot to doing the compression. Sometimes in line on the way in, it changes the way the band performs. For one, it ties some things together, and some things are worth committing to early in the chain. So that's kind of played in. But yeah, you can, Steve Albini, no compression. You can go on up from there, and it also depends a little bit again on like what's your goal for this recording. Like, are you trying to get on radio and arenas, and that's a whole different kind of type of production and a kind of end game. Do you just want to have a punk rock record that you're going to press and get out really quick, or just CDs? You're not even going on vinyl. Or like we've had someone who came in, he's like, a friend of mine wrote these songs, I want to cover them and send them back to her. And that was like one day we did board mixes, super happy, sent it back. So what do we want to do with this project is kind of one of the first questions we ask, and then it's how we're going to record it, and making sure we're in the right place. And then again, as it moves up, should the mastering, mixing be done here? Should the mastering be done here? What are we trying to accomplish? And like with the vinyl, the other thing is vinyl's a medium that everybody's getting into now, but it has constraints, and like you have to get it cut by somebody, and they can't just take a regular master. They need things done to like roll off certain frequencies, de-essing, all sorts of things that are done that people who know how to master for vinyl. So if you're going to do a record, find a person who's understands mastering for vinyl, hopefully has experience, but it's really important. So there's different mastering for different things: streaming, CDs, vinyl, radio. That can come into play too for the end product.
Jeff, can you tell me a little bit about the show that's coming up at Fletch's?
So we talked a little bit about the history, the building's history, the studio history. We got into the studio about a year ago, and so say like, hey, we should do a 1-year anniversary. We're like, this studio was built in 2000 by JJ and Jeff DeGuy, as we talked about. And we're like, why don't we recognize that this is that same studio? Especially with like, people are starting to come back in, and things that Jason was talking about that we'd seen. Started talking with Randy about it. He's like, there's people, let's just start going. So Randy put a call out on Instagram, was like, who wants to play the show? And so we started out with a priority on the history bands, but we knew we were going to keep some spots for current bands that have recorded in like the last year or so. And so we collected some, got with JJ and Jeff DeGuy. They came down, the three of us sat together in the studio and pointed out, it's the three Jeffs. So, all right, let's Jeff Cube this thing. And we just like throwing out all sorts of different band names and everything. And really fun hanging out with the three of them, or the two of them in the studio, and getting a list together. And then they went off and started talking about people, getting them to reunite. So the show, what we did too is we're going to have 14 bands, and it's 20-minute sets. So if you're a union band, you don't have to learn as much, but also bring your A game. And so it's also 20 minutes is an album side. So play an album side, kind of like a vinyl night sort of idea. And so that's how we've structured the show. We've got 14 bands playing, and there is, some bands that reunited to give us the highlights of the history. And then we've got bands that are current on the scene right now. And together, it's just like, there's so much in Oshkosh. Like, one of the reasons I moved here is I'm like, this is a real music scene. It's a music town. And it goes back, I've been getting flyers for when the Dead Kennedys and Black Flag played at the Video Rec Center, which is only a half a block from where we're doing the studio. So like lots of stuff. And this is bringing that out. And the other thing too is a lot of music from the 80s. We're seeing bands that are playing punk rock music, and we promised we weren't going to go political. The only thing I'll say is we're getting a lot of things that were like the 80s. Those songs are kind of relevant again. So there's a lot, music is really important, and that's kind of what this show's about. And it's not just like a museum show. Everybody's like really excited about playing. It's community and friendship, and that's kind of the theme that we're going with here. So we've got the lineup now, and I'll do alphabetical order, but we've got After Hours, we've got the Blue Sky Dreamers, we've got Cookie Bug, we talked about earlier, the Gooey Band, Dead Buddhas, Generation Y, Gross Rama, who's actually doing an LP release, and then we have the Jeremy and the Jupiters, we've got Moral Disgust, we've got Menthol Spliff, we've got Natural Satellite, we've got Punch and the Murder Monkeys, Rebel Waltz, and Smoke Free Home. So that's like covering the story, and then JJ and Jeff are really happy. They're like, this is getting across the spectrum.
I can't believe you made it through that whole list. I was like going down thinking he's going to miss one, but you nailed every single one of them on there. So that is great, the new and the old. And you mentioned Smoke Free Home had recently recorded at the studio, so they're going to be there right alongside Rebel Waltz, who, of course, has the history of, Jeff owning the studio, or JJ owning the studio prior. So that's really cool. And it's at Fletch's, which is a great music venue to see a show at. It's going to be outside, right? In the patio?
It's outside. So they have a stage, but they don't have a sound system. So going back to Aaron Dusarhoff, who did that video, he's also bringing the sound system, and he's
nice.
Mile Music fame. We went there and scoped it all out. So it's going to be like a real sound system down there. Randy was like, let's make sure we get this right. Randy's not here today, but he's a huge part of putting this show together, organizing it, and he and I will be running that show. Jason's actually, Sunrise Project was supposed to play, had to drop out from another gig that they've got. There's so many musicians, so working hard to like line up who can be there when. Some people have gigs, and some people came in from out of town. So we spent a while putting it together, and it's really exciting to see it's going to happen on Saturday. And weather looks good so far, so like that's the other big piece. So that's really playing. It goes from 2 p.m. to 12:30. We'll be playing music between all the bands that has been recorded in the studio. So just build up a big pile and like let it play. So 20-minute sets, 20-minute turnover, and just cruising through the day. So at the end of the night, we'll shift inside for a little bit. There'll be a merch table. We've also got Punk Rock Saves Lives is going to be there. Not familiar with them. They're a really important community group. So they'll be there represented and answering questions for that too. So,
well, and again, you're on the news this morning talking about it with Steve from Cookie Bug.
Yep.
Which Cookie Bug? This is their last final for sure show. They're saying. What do you think from having the inside information?
I think it will be their last show, but it won't be Steve's last show by any means. He's got Redshift headlights. They asked that. Yeah, we had our last show, but Cookie Bug is actually there. It's really special that they're playing because Matt doesn't even live here anymore. So when people are coming out of town to do this, it's pretty special. And that's they're also like seeing friends and everything. That's why it's more than just like a 20-minute set. And what Cookie Bug did was, and I was teasing him earlier, I'm like, so you played 2 acoustic songs this morning, then you play your 20-minute set to warm up, then you have a show at the Reptile Palace on the 12th. But it's cool because they wouldn't have got back together if it wasn't for this show. And then Jeff DeGooey, the DeGooey Moore band played a couple weeks ago with Twisted Egyptians. And so, we're seeing some of that stuff reignite, and it's pretty cool.
And then the show is free. It's free to get in, but it is a 21 plus
It's 21 and over place, yeah. So you could be outside the fence and you'll be able to hear it.
I was going to say, there's a loophole.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you could probably sit in the parking lot across from Fletch's by the big Oshkosh mural and get a lawn chair and, you'll be able to hear it fine.
So, Jeff, I don't know if you're in any bands. I know you've been playing at, like, open mic things, right? Or you have some kind of connections with, are you in any projects?
So yes, sort of, maybe no. I was in bands back in Seattle, and that's kind of what got me to start the record label. Was when I was done being in the bands and people I was in the bands were still going on. I was in a band called the Beautiful Mothers. This guy Eric Balaban's a fantastic songwriter, probably one of my favorite in the world still. And he had a band called Second Academy. They did some records. A band from Japan called Golden. I'm like, there's all this music and no one's going to do anything with it. That's why I started the record label and built on that. So I had a lot of good time playing punk rock stuff. And I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio in the 80s. So like everybody came through. So we got exposed to like so much. It was a pretty amazing time to grow up. And that's where I got my appreciation. That's why I talked to the people that were on the Oshkosh because they're like, who are you and why are you doing this comp? You just moved here. I'm like, because this is something special that's going on around here and like I want to help capture it. So we're doing some projects like Randy's reached out a little bit. Like there's this, I'm kind of a fan of just pure kind of noise type stuff. All the way back, I used to be an Einstürzen and Neubauten fan, and then just kind of growing. There's a whole, realm of noise music, and so I'm kind of like into the improv kind of stuff, and so we've been doing some of that in the studio. Randy's like pretty amazing at it, and so we kind of get together and then invite other people in, and we just do these conversations and noise. So it's something that we're kind of working up to. And then, you kind of tuned in when I first got here. The Dead Horse Saloon was having, open jam night. They have it again tonight, Tuesday, and it's different every night, and some nights are different. But they have when there's someone who gets up there who hasn't played before, or they're doing something different. Banjo Brian, we nicknamed him. Bird Talk, he's on the comp. Gets up there and he plays a banjo through effects pedals and does a bunch of Ween covers, and then has some originals. That's like one example, and that Quiver the Busker, that's another person who's on the Osh comp, and then Peanut Butter Music, he plays bass and just like taps out like crazy, like Stanley Jordan meets Les Claypool, and he didn't know who Stanley Jordan was, and I'm like, so there's these pockets of madness too, plus people just getting a chance to get on stage for the first time. Our shtick is I'll get up there and I play with some people, and we say like, this next song's a world premiere because we haven't even heard it, and play like 3 songs, 3 minutes, no more than that, so have a little structure. So I'm having fun doing that, but I don't have like a primary band right now.
But you might sometime soon, it sounds like.
A recording studio feels like. I just want to record some stuff, that's for sure. But I'm not. I'm a little too old to jump in the van and couch surf around.
Well, Jeff, I think what you're doing is great, and if people want to check it out and support it, you can find out more at trsrecordingstudio.com.
Yep.
So is there any other place that people should go?
Well, on there, we have an Instagram and a Facebook page. Those are pretty active. And you can reach out to us on any of those, and email addresses. We're watching that stuff. And, we are like trying to give back. Randy, Jason, and I we did a lot of this stuff, wished for a lot of this stuff when we were younger. And so we're trying to get the opportunities that we didn't have. And that's like, Randy and I had those conversations at the beginning. Like, we need to let other engineers come in and use the studio. We've had JT Casper's been doing a bunch of recording in there. Michael Murphy's come in and he records his own stuff. And so we want to have the opportunity for other engineers to come in and learn. So if you're an engineer that's trying to learn how to work with a studio, we can give you those opportunities. Eventually Randy and I aren't going to be able to hear any frequencies, and that's not going to be helpful. So we got to have, a turnover plan. So we really do want to expose people to the tools of the trade, and they may just take this and go run somewhere else with it, in the long run. But we just want to keep getting some history recorded here.